Dean Durant and Allison Spooner gained attention when they celebrated the arrival of biracial twin daughters in 2001. Despite the rarity of this occurrence, an even more surprising event unfolded 7 years later, leaving Allison at a loss for words. Dean and Allison, a mixed-race couple in Britain, faced no extraordinary circumstances when they started their relationship. Dean, with West Indian heritage, had darker skin, while Allison, a Brit, had pale skin. The couple eagerly anticipated becoming parents when Allison got pregnant. Their excitement reached new heights when they learned they were expecting twins. Little did they know, their daughters would be extraordinary. The twins, Haley and Lauren, arrived prematurely, and from their first cries, it was evident that they were unique. Being non-identical, it meant that 2 separate eggs were fertilized by 2 separate sperms, resulting in distinct genetic inheritances for each girl. Haley resembled her father, Dean, with darker skin and dark hair. In contrast, Lauren had lighter skin, reddish hair, and piercing blue eyes, resembling her mother, Allison. The uniqueness of having such distinct appearances for biracial twins was striking. And there was no suspicion of a mix-up in the nursery. From the beginning, it was clear that each parent had a daughter representing their genetic makeup. While still rare, the occurrence of biracial twins has seen a recent increase, possibly attributed to the growing frequency and acceptance of mixed-race marriages in society. The chances of giving birth to such a different set of twins are approximately 1 in 500,000. This shift could be linked to the evolving landscape where diverse skin colors are a result of a combination of several genes. Each parent contributes a unique mix to the genetic table. And when one of the parents is from a mixed-race relationship, the chances of having biracial children increase. Mixed-race couples can have children with either Caucasian or Black ethnicity, depending on the dominance of certain genes. The outcome is akin to a game of dice, resulting in consistently intriguing and diverse combinations. Before becoming parents, Dean and Allison never considered the possibility of having biracial twins. They assumed it was most likely for the girls to have a skin tone somewhere in between theirs. When the miracle event occurred, they were not even aware of the phenomenon of biracial twins. A brief overview of genetics highlighted how blessed, unique, and fortunate they were to be the parents of these special twins. Haley and Lauren faced few problems while growing up. But in their hometown of Fleet, England, they became a kind of local sensation. People would give them curious looks when they saw them together. But the presence of both parents at the school gates explained the logical explanation for the girls' distinct yet familiar appearances. Some struggled to believe that the girls were twins, as the common perception was that twins should look the same or at least share the same color. To educate others, the school celebrated the uniqueness of the twins by displaying a picture in their biology classroom. While dealing with occasional odd comments, Dean and Allison focused on raising their twins, navigating the financial challenges of providing for 2 children of the same age. Allison worked as a recruitment consultant, and Dean was in fleet management. Though not millionaires, they were rich in their own ways. Haley and Lauren, always good friends, particularly enjoyed building puzzles together and happily shared the same bedroom since birth. They simply couldn't envision their lives without the love and unwavering support they provided each other. Having their true best friend by their side constantly was an incredible blessing for both of them. At the tender age of 7, the girls also cherished playing with dolls. But they would soon set aside their toys for a more interactive hobby. Little did they know that something extraordinary was about to occur, bringing a dramatic yet wonderful change to their lives. In the year 2008, Allison was taken aback when she discovered that she was pregnant once again. However, she also felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of adding another child to their family. Fortunately, They had held on to all the baby clothes and equipment from their twins. So they didn't need to make significant purchases for the upcoming baby. Allison was 27 years old at the time and Dean was 33. Making it an ideal time for them to expand their family. Additionally, the girls were old enough to relish the idea of a new addition to the family. The day the doctors confirmed that Allison was expecting twins again was both thrilling and astonishing. While there would be some financial stress, the parents realized that the initial costs would be minimal since they already possessed most of what they needed to care for their girls. They could now relax and eagerly anticipate the arrival of 2 more girls to their already happy family. The second pregnancy, however, was not as straightforward as the first one. At 37 weeks, doctors determined that both girls were in a breech position, making a natural birth impossible. Consequently, the babies were delivered via cesarean section at Frimley Park Hospital in Surrey. The entire delivery process lasted approximately 30 minutes. On October 13, 2008, Mia was born weighing 4.11 pounds, 2.1 kilograms. While her sister Leah was slightly heavier at 5.1 pounds, 2.6 kilograms. Despite the joy of their birth, there were several complications. The girls were experiencing breathing difficulties, necessitating their transfer to a special care unit. This marked the first time in their lives that they were separated. The following 5 days blurred into a whirlwind of medical activity as the hospital staff tirelessly worked to ensure the well-being of both girls. After some anxious and nail-biting moments, the twins were finally reunited and joyously presented to their relieved parents. Have you ever been taken aback by something you should have noticed or predicted long before it actually happened? This is exactly what unfolded for Allison and her unsuspecting husband that day. The new mother received the shock of her life. It had been apparent from their birth statistics that one of the girls was slightly bigger than the other. But the real astonishment occurred when Mia and Leah were placed side by side in a crib. Both parents couldn't help but shout in astonishment. It felt as if they were reliving the birth of their 2 older daughters. This time around, Leah was the sister with lighter skin, joining the ranks with her mom, Allison, and her older sister Lauren. On the other hand, Mia bore a striking resemblance to her father, Dean, and sister Haley. Even though the family had 3 members with lighter skin and 3 with darker skin, race was never a point of focus or contention for them. This couple had accomplished the unimaginable. Never for a moment did the parents think that their second set of twins would also cause the same kind of stir. Yet, here they were again. Mia and Leah, defying all odds as yet another biracial set of twins. To have this happen twice. The odds were now 1,000,000 to 1. It was no wonder that the Guinness World Records team recognized this family as one of the rarest phenomena ever to occur in a maternity ward. At the time, they were the only family in the world known to have produced 2 sets of biracial twins. This occurrence was so rare that there weren't even available statistics for such an event. The older twins were overjoyed when their little baby sisters were brought home. Finally, they could play with real babies instead of their usual dolls. As time passed, Lauren and Haley became strong role models for their little sisters. Interestingly enough, Leah and Mia grew to resemble each other more and more. Apart from defying these incredible odds, they are a normal, happy family. Lauren and Haley have already blossomed into beautiful young women at the age of 22. While Leah and Mia are now 15-year-old teenagers. All the girls are incredibly beautiful and seem to be growing up too quickly, especially in the eyes of their parents. Were you aware of the phenomenon of biracial twins before watching this video? Would you have ever guessed that these girls were twins instead of just close friends? Please share your thoughts on the remarkable journey this incredible family has experienced up to this point. When Michelle chose to marry Kenny, despite encountering resistance from her friends and family, She faced mockery and ridicule from the people she held dear. Those she loved laughed at her for loving someone they viewed as an ugly black man. However, only 3 years later, they deeply regretted their hurtful comments. As a 7-year-old girl, Michelle invited her friend Clarice to her home for a sleepover. Her parents initially agreed, but when Clarice arrived, they made extreme racial remarks and abruptly canceled the sleepover. It was the first time in her life that Michelle confronted the reality that some people are unfairly judged by the color of their skin. Because Michelle was still very young, she felt compelled to conform to her parents' norms. As a result, her circle of friends gradually shifted to consist entirely of white, middle-class individuals who engaged in similar activities. Everyone believed life was simpler this way. Michelle always had a streak of rebellion within her. And during her teenage years, this trait intensified. The once shy girl transformed into a young woman with strong opinions and hidden secrets. She began attending parties and taking stances on various issues. Much like her peers, if her parents had known what was happening in their daughter's mind, they might have tried to exert more control over her. However, at one of the livelier parties, a tall black boy struck up a conversation with Michelle. Initially surprised by his attention, as the evening unfolded, she discovered that he was quite intelligent. Their conversations made her question some of the stereotypes she had previously held about black people. While Kenny wasn't initially considered very attractive by Michelle, her own prejudices began to break down over time. Michelle felt drawn to Kenny, and she wanted to befriend him. However, she knew that their friendship would have to remain a secret, especially from her parents. At the conclusion of one particular party, Michelle took a bold step by slipping her phone number to Kenny, surprising him. The ensuing weeks were marked by emotional turmoil. The more Michelle got to know Kenny, the more fascinated she became by his character. She was increasingly willing to challenge her parents' restrictions and expectations. Why should she adhere to their rules if she perceived life differently? She believed that if her parents could meet Kenny, they might change their minds. Despite his race, Kenny was just a normal person. Before long, Michelle found herself deeply in love with Kenny. The first time he touched her hand, her heart skipped a few beats. And their first kiss solidified their connection. Michelle resolved to follow her heart, regardless of her parents' expectations. She held on to the belief that love conquers all. The two young lovers began meeting in secret, sharing stolen moments of passion. However, parents have a way of uncovering their teenagers' secrets. The moment Michelle's parents discovered what was happening, the situation took a dramatic turn. If her parents had been aware of the thoughts brewing in their daughter's mind, they might have reacted quite strongly. During one of the livelier parties, a tall black boy struck up a conversation with Michelle. Initially, she felt somewhat taken aback by his attention. However, as the evening unfolded, she came to realize that this young man was remarkably intelligent. The conversations they had together made her question some of the preconceived notions she held about black people. Kenny was a well-spoken young man, although even Michelle initially didn't find him particularly attractive. Breaking down one's own prejudice can be a gradual process. Michelle soon discovered that she wanted to get to know Kenny better. But she also recognized that their friendship would need to remain a secret, especially from her parents. At the conclusion of the party, Michelle surprised Kenny by discreetly slipping him her phone number. The subsequent weeks were characterized by emotional turmoil. And the more Michelle got to know Kenny, the more intrigued she became by his character. She was intrigued by his character and willing to escape her parents' grasp. Why did she have to follow their rules? If she viewed life completely differently. If her parents could meet Kenny, They would surely change their minds despite him being black. He was just a normal boy. It didn't take long for Michelle to fall head over heels in love with Kenny the first time. He touched her hand, her heart skipped a few beats, but the first kiss sealed the deal. She decided to follow her heart. Despite her parents' expectations, Michelle clung to the belief that love conquers all, or so she thought. The two young lovers continued to meet in secret, sharing stolen moments of passion. However, parents have a way of uncovering their teenagers' secrets. The moment Michelle's parents realized what was transpiring, they took decisive action. They forbade any contact with Kenny. And when they realized that Michelle was not inclined to submit to their rules, they sent her off to an all-white boarding school with strict rules and discipline. They were convinced that the physical distance between Michelle and Kenny would force their daughter into submission. With no way to see each other and limited means to communicate, the relationship slowly withered away. Michelle's parents seemingly achieved their goal. This once rebellious young girl started dating white boys from her school, and Kenny became a distant memory. School posed its own set of challenges, and Michelle now aspired to become a doctor. The rebellion of her earlier years gave way to a hard-working, goal-oriented young woman determined to make a success of her life. Her college years flew by. Michelle dated casually, but there was never anything serious. Amidst her studies and her passion for working in disadvantaged communities, fate brought Charles into Michelle's life. He was a fellow medical student and appeared to be the ideal husband candidate in the eyes of Michelle's parents. They were highly impressed when Charles approached them to ask for their daughter's hand in marriage. Blessing the union was the easiest thing they could do. The couple planned a grand wedding ceremony shortly after their final graduation. However, the two doctors would spend the last 6 months apart, each completing their practical training in distant locations. Michelle was assigned to a community hospital close to where she grew up. She wholeheartedly immersed herself in her work, finding complete satisfaction in it. Shortly after starting her work at the hospital, Michelle found herself manning the emergency ward one night when a black man was rushed in, having been shot at close range. Such events were sadly part of everyday life in this underprivileged community. With no time to waste, Michelle focused on saving the man's life. Demonstrating precision and dedication, Michelle skillfully removed the bullet from the wounded man. Feeling a deep sense of compassion for these young individuals who had few options to escape the cycle of violence, she always did her best to help them. Once the operation was completed, Michelle glanced at the man's face, and her heart skipped a beat. Despite the passage of time, she immediately recognized him. His features had matured, but there was no mistaking that this was the same bright young man she had loved long ago. Her emotional world was turned upside down in an instant. Michelle closely monitored her patient's recovery and progress. Her mind flooded with questions about Kenny's fate over the years. Had he fallen victim to his circumstances and joined the wrong crowds? Why had he been shot? When Kenny finally regained consciousness, the police came to question him. Michelle eavesdropped on the conversation from outside the room and learned that Kenny had simply found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in the crossfire between two rival gangs. Once the police left, Michelle summoned her courage and entered the room. When their eyes met, she knew that Kenny had never forgotten her either. They were still connected by a bond of love that could not be broken by distance or time. Michelle found herself at a crossroads. In the weeks of nursing Kenny back to health, she realized she loved him deeply and had to break off her engagement to Charles. She also came to the painful realization that her parents held racist beliefs and would disown her if she chose to be with Kenny. This decision would come at a great cost. But Michelle understood that it was her destiny. She believed in her ability to create her own future and happiness. Finally, Michelle made the bravest decision of her life. With Kenny back to health and their studies completed, she ended her engagement with Charles and eloped with Kenny. Kenny, a teacher, and Michelle established themselves in an underprivileged area where they could both make a meaningful difference. For the first time in her life, Michelle was truly happy and wanted to share her happiness with the world. However, when her friends saw the wedding pictures on her social media pages, most of the comments were shocking. In their eyes, Kenny was deemed an ugly black man, and they couldn't comprehend how she could leave Charles, who they saw as the perfect power couple partner. As expected, her parents severed all ties with Michelle, and her friends openly speculated that her new relationship wouldn't last, believing that Michelle would eventually return to Charles. The moment she realized her mistake, despite all the hurt and rejection, Michelle and Kenny held a deep love for each other. They shared the same vision for their purpose in life and nurtured a profound spiritual connection. To them, it was perfectly fine to stand united against the world. They decided to put an end to the hurtful comments and mockery by Michelle ceasing her social media activity. Their lives as community builders flourished. And 2 years later, they welcomed a beautiful son into their lives. To Michelle, Kenny was the most beautiful man she had ever known. She never dwelled on the color of his skin because she had fallen in love with the extraordinary person he had always been on the inside. 3 years after the couple had eloped, Michelle decided to post pictures of their little family on social media and share some of the incredible initiatives they were involved in to help their community. It was only then that their friends realized Michelle and Kenny were still happily married and deeply in love. They began to regret their prior prejudice and the cruel comments they had made years earlier. Kenny had never been ugly, he had simply been different. And the color of his skin had unfairly led them to be judgmental. This time around, the comments they received were filled with praise and astonishment about the remarkable achievements of the couple. Although this story is fictional, it serves as a testament to some of the racial prejudice that still exists today. Have you ever experienced racist remarks? How would you react if a friend of yours chose to marry someone from a vastly different background? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.